Welcome back, MLP fans, to the second part of my MLP CCG Absolute Discord review. In this part, we'll be looking at the biggest, the most important section, the friends. As I stated in the first part, I feel like every color got a little something to help out their color in this set. Obviously, some got it better than others, so I won't be looking at the same number of cards for each set. I pretty much just went through and saved every card that I found slightly interesting. This part of the video is going to be really long, so let's just get straight into it. First, we're going to look at the Changeling Drone in blue. It's a 2 cost, 2 power, 2 color requirement, and it gets plus 2 power for each Frighten friend in play. Now, this is a very exciting card for people who wanted to play Frighten competitively, because this is a card that can get to ridiculous heights with all of the Frighten that we have available to us now. If you're playing the deck correctly, you can count on this almost always being at least a 6, and if you're playing with multiple of these in play at the same time, it's probably going to be GG. Even if your opponent does have something that stands in the way of Changeling Drone, you just frighten it, who cares? Next, I want to look at Lightning Dust. This is another card that kind of builds around the Frighten thing, but I don't think this would work well in a straight Frighten deck. I think this is more an interesting idea to get Frighten into other deck types. When you play the final card in your hand, you can Frighten a friend. Now, I think this is interesting for a couple of reasons. The first being there are ways to discard cards from your hand down to 1 card, and then if you can play that last card, then you get to use its effect. What's even better than that is because you're playing the last card in your hand, next turn when you draw that 1 card, you'll be able to play it and you're playing the last card in your hand again. You can also just be super cheesy, play the last card in your hand, and then pay 1 to draw a card, and then play that card, and you've played the last card in your hand again. This is going to be nuts for frightening. The reason I say it doesn't sound that good for a pure Frighten deck, though, is because it's really situational trying to get your hand down to the very last card, and you don't really have the space for getting there, you know? There are lots of good cards that let you discard, but none that we would run over cards that just give us pure Frighten. But if you throw this in like a blue-orange overwhelming deck, who knows? The possibilities are endless. Flipping your main quickly has always been a staple part of the MLP CCG, but there's not really been much to punish people who quickly boost their main, and now we have something. If your opponent's main character is boosted, this card has Swift. You're paying 1 to move 3 power around the board. It's not a game-breakingly huge thing, but it is pretty awesome that we're starting to see things that punish people who boost their main too quickly. It's not gonna stop them from boosting their main quickly, but it is going to give you a bonus. Shining Armor is interesting because it's one of 2 new cards that came out that add something kind of new. And that's if this card is involved in a face-off, it has plus 2 power. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen something like this. There was Jetstream, I think her name was, in base set. But this is the first time we've seen it since base set, and it's starting to become kind of a common theme for blue, so it's something I wanted to bring up. Plus, I think Shining Armor is way better than Spike. Face-offs always have been and always will be a huge part of the game, so I feel like the comeback of this effect means that blue is about to hit another power spike. Meaning people need to keep their eyes on cards like this because they're going to start becoming very relevant. Lastly, we'll look at our ultra rare. It's Rainbow Dash. This is a very interesting card. I can't actually tell how good it's going to be. I have a feeling it's going to be very, very good for rushdown decks, but I'm not sure if it's going to compete around decks that don't build around it. When she comes into play, she does it with 3 momentum counters, and every turn you discard 1 momentum counter. But when this card is involved in a face-off, it gets plus 2 power for each momentum counter on it. So we're looking at a card that comes in at 3 cost, that is 8 on the first turn, then 6, then 4. Unfortunately, at the end of the next turn, it's going to be discarded. It's one of those cards that's very easy to play around and stall with, so people who don't really know what they're doing and they play this card just because they think it's kind of cool to have 8 power, I don't think it's going to work out very well for them, because if their opponent knows what they're doing at all, they're just going to wait it out and let Rainbow Dash destroy herself. But in the right hands, I feel like if you know you're going into a face-off, or if you're planning around a face-off, going in with 8 power for 3 cost is going to guarantee you that win. I'm on the fence about her, but we'll see what happens. Next, let's look at Orange. Let's start with Granny Smith, Respect Your Elders. She's a 3 cost, 2 power with 1 requirement. This is another card that punishes your opponent for having a boosted friend. It has +2 power and Stubborn as long as your opponent's main is boosted. I think this is really cool because it's 3 cost for a 4 power with Stubborn, and we've already seen how much Stubborn can be abused in Orange. Next, let's look at Qbert Chelius. When this card's problem is solved, if this card would be sent home, it isn't sent home instead. I think that's really cool. So if you can get this on something, and if you're playing something like, let's say, Orange-White would be really good because you can load this thing with accessories. You can put it on a problem, and once the face-off happens and once the problem is completely solved and a new problem is flipped face up, this stays there on the problem. There's going to be so many cool decks that come out with this kind of idea. It doesn't even matter what your home limit is anymore, okay? Your home limit, not even a thing, because you can just have 3 Qbert Cheliuses chilling on your opponent's problem, and you can just keep solving it every single time, and you don't have to pay any to move over, and I just think it's a really cool effect. I feel like Orange is a little bit unbalanced. It's got a little too much power right now, but at the same time, I love seeing new effects like this come into play. I hope we continue seeing things like this, but maybe for the other colors. Once again, Orange comes through with some amazing ultra rares. The first one we're going to look at is Applejack Lasso Champion. I know I say this for like every Orange card that comes out in every set, but this card is going to become a must-have at least 2 of in almost all Orange decks. It's 4 costs for 4 power, which is already amazing, and when it comes into play, you can exhaust one of your opponent's characters, and while this character remains in play, that character does not ready up during the ready phase. Way too good. There's way too much control going here, because if you exhaust one of your opponent's characters, that character cannot assist in the scoring phase, it cannot assist during face-offs. If you're getting something like a Cloud Chaser or a Twilight Ultimate Organizer, it loses its effect. I cannot believe that they're giving Orange this much control and putting it on a 5 power pony. That is ridiculous. Power, speed, control, there's no reason to not be running this at least 2 in all of your Orange decks. The other Orange Ultra Rare isn't quite as good, but is still amazing. 2 for 3 power, again we're seeing those big numbers, not much cost. This card also has Stubborn and an amazing effect, okay? Stubborn and an amazing effect means just automatically we need it. Opposing friends here lose and cannot have abilities. I don't even need to explain that. Everything about it is good. All of a sudden, your opponent's Rarity Truly Outrageous doesn't have an effect, okay? You've got those spring forwards that don't have effects, those Holly Dashes that don't have effects. Like, it doesn't do anything to main characters, but it doesn't need to do anything to main characters. Your opponent's friends are now vanillas. That is so good. There's too many instances where that is amazing. No more Owl. No more Twilight Ursa Vanquisher. No more of pretty much any friend card. I don't know if this is going to be a staple in every single Orange deck, but I'd say at least a one of in most Orange decks because of just how much versatility there is. Getting to Pink, we've got a lot of friends to look at. We're going to start with Ace. Ace is really cool because if you're pairing up pink and purple like you would with, say, a Pinky Sparkle Surprise deck, you are getting access to pretty much unlimited hand advantage. Ace is such a cool card for that kind of deck because you play an Ace and then you play something like Back Where You Began to move one of your opponent's characters from one problem to the other problem, or you move Twilight to move a character from one problem to another problem. Then not only does Ace get to move along with them, but you get to draw a card. And if you have multiple Aces in play, like let's say you have 3 Aces in play at a problem, and you move one of your opponent's friends from that problem to the other problem, you move 6 power onto the problem to follow them, and you draw into 3 new cards. The idea alone is outstanding. Pinkie Pie Life of the Party is a little bit like the Rainbow Dash Sonic Rain Boom that we looked at earlier, but it's an uncommon, so obviously it's not going to be quite as good. When it comes into play at a problem, it gets +1 power for each of your friends at that problem for that turn. This has the same potential of coming in and solving a problem that you wouldn't normally be able to solve, or going into a face-off with somebody who has a lot more power than your opponent is expecting to see, but it also has the same problem where it fizzles out and becomes kind of useless afterwards. Granted, this one doesn't destroy itself like the Sonic Rain Boom does. If you're running a deck with the options to get rid of this Pinkie Pie after that one turn, then this has the potential to be an amazing card, but again, it's something you have to kind of build around. Pinkie Pie, Ponkapo is a pretty unique card. See, it's a 1 cost, 1 power, 1 requirement card, so it's very easy to fit into pretty much any pink deck, and each time an opposing friend is dismissed, this card gets +2 power until the end of the turn. This is kind of the same thing as Life of the Party, where you have the potential to be a very powerful card at really no cost. I don't really know, again, if this is going to be a card that sees a whole lot of play, but I think it's a card that has a whole lot of potential. Plus, you know, 1 cost ponies aren't really that bad in pink because you normally have the random effect. Since pink is all about dismissing friends anyway, if you fit this into a deck that does that a lot, like a downright dangerous deck, then this is pretty amazing to tech in. I wanted to look at Princess Cadance on Vacation because normally pink is notorious for getting an awful draw card. We had Buried Dreams, then we had that one really stupid card that let your opponent draw a card too. It's been awful so far. Pink always gets the worst draw card. In this case, they actually ended up getting the best draw card. You pay 4 for a 4 power pony that only has a 2 color requirement, and you get to draw 2 cards. Too good. Too good. If you want to make it even cheesier, you can rock this with like purple or something that lets you take your friends out of play and then to put them back in play to get their effects again. So if you rock this with like perfect teleporting or whatever it's called, you play this, draw 2 cards, blink out of existence, bring it back into play, draw 2 more cards. There's a lot you can do with it nowadays. Bravo Interplay for finally giving pink not the worst draw card in the game. I wanted to talk about Screwball because I think it's a really cool idea. When this card enters play, you choose an opponent and that opponent gets control of this card. At the end of their main phase, keep in mind its second effect happens to them because they're now in control of it. At the end of their main phase, they can retire a different friend, and if they can't, they retire this card. Now, this card is going to be very hard to work around because if your opponent's smart, they can just put this like at their home and then get rid of it because chances are they're not going to have any friends at their home, or they can just move it to one of their other problems that doesn't have any friends, and it really doesn't do anything. But if played at the precise correct moment, you can really mess up your opponent's plans, because if your opponent has just completed a face-off or something and they have some friends at home and they start playing friends at their problems and they have at least 1 friend on each problem and home, you put this in play, and no matter what, your opponent has to make some decisions. Either they take it and they put it on the problem with their least important friends and they just sacrifice that friend off, or they move it somewhere and then they have to pay the 2 to move that friend away from that problem so that it doesn't end up getting destroyed and costs your opponent 2 action points. I don't know. I think it has the potential to really throw a wrench in your opponent's gears, but I do recognize how situational it is. Finally, we'll take a look at an ultra rare, Discord, the Spirit of Chaos. It is a pretty beefy 3 cost, 7 power, but it has the effect this card has -3 power. Now you can get around this a few ways. First of all, if you know your opponent's going to be rocking that 1 bull that negates all of your opponent's abilities, you can just screw with them by playing this Discord, and all of a sudden that works to your advantage because this loses the effect this card has -3 power. So you just pay 3 for a 7 and you kick that bull in the teeth. Or you can rock an orange card that just came out that we'll be looking at later that makes one in-play friend lose all of its abilities. And all of a sudden, this is a 3 cost for 7 power, and you only have to pay 1 to get rid of the -3 power. Purple is another color that we'll be looking at a lot of cards for. I wanted to look at Comet Tail because he has the effect Troublemakers here have +1 power. This leads to a new trend that Purple is getting in its deck types, which is powering up your Troublemakers. That's right, guys. Pure Troublemaker decks are almost becoming a thing. We're so close. Right now, though, Troublemaker stall decks are starting to become a lot more powerful. Comet Tail is just a good example of how far Troublemaker stall decks have come. Minuet is a great card. It is superbly good, and a lot of people are not going to understand why. During the main phase, you can pay 2 and exhaust this card to banish a friend, and at the start of the next turn, you can put that friend back into play. This does a couple of things. First of all, you can banish one of your opponent's friends if they're going to challenge one of your Troublemakers, so this is another part of the Troublemaker stall deck. Or, you can play it the other way, which is if one of your friends has a really good on-play effect, like the whole draw 2 cards that we saw in pink with Princess Cadence, you can get rid of it, stop your opponent from initiating a face-off maybe, and then when it comes back into play, you can get the bonus again. This kind of effect is especially deadly with something like Pinky Responsibility Pie, because you play your Pinky Responsibility Pie, you dismiss a friend. Then you banish it with this card, and then you bring it back into play, and all of a sudden, you get rid of another card. And then you can just keep doing it over and over again. You have a Pinky Responsibility Pie that gets rid of a friend every single turn. I want you to pay close attention to the fact that it says put that friend in play. What that means is you don't have to put it back into its exact same spot. You can put it anywhere you want to in play. So that Pinky Responsibility Pie is now a master of discarding. One other really cool thing about this is if you end up going into a face-off anyway, like let's say your opponent initiates like a double face-off or something, then you get to put it back in play after the face-off has happened and everybody's gone home. So that's just another really cool tech. I've talked enough about this card. You can see why it's good now, I hope. Oh my gosh, Trixie almost kind of got a decent card with Big Boaster. If your opponent has a boosted main character at this card's problem cannot be confronted. This is so lulzy. I don't know if it's actually runnable, like if anybody's actually going to use it in any of their decks, but it's just such a middle finger card. Because your opponent boosts, your opponent goes onto a problem, and they are ready to just sit there and rack up them points. You put Trixie down onto that problem, and all of a sudden, it's a lot less manageable. Because unless your opponent starts moving their stuff around, they can't confront that problem. This also means that your opponent cannot initiate a double face-off because they cannot confront the problem that this card is at. It stops double face-offs, it stops stalling, it is just an overall funny card. Truffle is kind of our new way to get bonus action points. When an opponent moves a character, we can just, exhaust this, get 1 action point. It's not a complicated card. It's probably honestly not even that great of a card, but we're getting more options for getting action points, which is what Purple is supposed to be about in the first place, and I just think that's awesome. Truffle might be worth throwing in like a one of in most cases, because your opponent's going to be moving characters, and this is going to pay for itself within like the first 2 turns, and then every single turn after that is going to be pure profit, and you're going to have 2 power on the board. Zecora cards have always kind of been about putting a card from your hand onto the top of your deck to manipulate face-offs, but they've always found some little way to make it unplayable. This time I think they finally just straight out got it right. First of all, you can put the card from your hand onto the top of your deck during the main phase, which is okay unless you're running some kind of deck that draws cards. In most cases, like stall decks, it's going to be just fine. Second of all, she has 3 power, and 3 power makes her useful for solving problems and being in face-offs. I'd say that for the first time, a Zakora card is worth having around in your purple decks. Wow, Sunset Shimmer got a card. Okay, I guess. Well, whenever our opponent plays a card, we can discard a card of the same type and gain 1 action point. This is another way to accelerate our action points, and I know what you're thinking. In most cases, getting rid of hand advantage to just get straight up action points isn't going to be that great, but there are going to be a lot of times where this is useful. If you are drawing into plenty of cards and your hand is just too full, then it's going to be really useful. Early game, it's going to be extremely useful because you're not going to have enough action points to play that many cards anyway. Overall, I think this card has potential, but it's not going to be as stable. White Friends didn't get as much love as the other colors, but it did get a couple of really cool things. First, we're going to look at Apple Bloom Overdressed. Opponents must pay +1 to move a character this card's problem. We're seeing more instances of toll booth play. For those who don't know what toll booth play is, it's pretty much forcing your opponent to pay extra to move their characters around. And this is the first instance of a really good one we've seen since, I think, the second set, maybe? It's just a really cool mechanic. There are some ideas to kind of get around it now, like blue is really good at getting around toll booth decks, but I think it's really cool to see it again, and I hope this means that we're going to see a little more toll booth play. Maybe this with Octavia? I don't know. So seriously, when did Buffaloes become a thing? We've got like 3 sets of Buffalo cards now, and I don't whatever, it doesn't even matter, okay? It's got 4 color requirement, which is kind of steep, but it's 2 costs for 2 power, and your opponent's home limit is reduced by 1. The thing that makes this great is this card is not unique. You can have 3 Ballerina Buffaloes in play, and all of a sudden your opponent practically doesn't even have a home limit anymore, okay? If they're not boosted, they don't have a home limit. If they are boosted, they've got a home limit of 1. That is really going to mess up their late game plays, okay? They get out of 1 face-off, and their board is cleared. That matters. And the last card I want to look at in white is Steven Magnet. I think this is an amazing card. When an opponent loses a face-off against a troublemaker here, gain control of an opposing friend involved in that face-off. Holy cow, that is really, really good, because you can manipulate whether or not your opponent's going to win a troublemaker face-off. And if you win that troublemaker face-off, you just start taking their friends. It's so good. It's so good. You can do so much with Steven Magnet in a troublemaker control deck. I want to see troublemaker control decks be a thing, and when you build your troublemaker control decks, you put Steven Magnet in, and your opponent never has a field. Let's see it happen, guys. I want to see it happen. Somebody please get 3 Steven Magnets onto a troublemaker, and then have your opponent lose 3 friends to a set of Steven Magnets. That would make my day. That would make me happy. Finally, we get onto our last color, yellow. First, I want to look at Flitter. She comes back with Caretaker, which isn't something we see very often on good cards, so I'm glad to see it here. During our main phase, we can pay 1 to move this card to a problem where we have a critter or a full friend. This is kind of like giving yellow cards Swift, and I totally dig it. Paying 1 to move 3 power onto a problem where we've already got critters sitting is amazing, especially considering how rushy yellow decks are supposed to be. We really didn't get too many good critters in the set, but this is definitely the best critter that we did get. During our main phase, when this card has lower power than any other friend here, we can exhaust it and pay 1 to put a friend here into its owner's hand. So if we have this chilling against like an orange player or something, then every single turn we can just get rid of one of their friends and put it back in their hand. This isn't that good against like pink and purple because they get so many good on-play effects, but it's great against like blue and orange because they have to keep paying for their friends over and over again, and eventually they're going to run out of action points and not be able to play anything new. This card is going to be a very staple, at least one of, in every competitive yellow deck, I promise you that. Next critter we'll look at is Petstrosity. During a face-off, we can pay 1 to choose one of each player's flipped cards, and those players ignore those cards. I just think this is kind of a neat effect because yellow is getting this thing where it's starting to just not even mess with flipped cards anymore, just taking like straight what we have on the board is all we get during this face-off. The great thing about this is you can guarantee if your opponent gets some kind of ungodly flip, like they draw into one of their 7 elements of harmony or something, you can just ignore the flips. You can just go, okay, well, they didn't happen now. GG, that's all that happens. And the other great thing about this is it doesn't say it has to be at the problem for this effect to take place. Don't know if it's going to become a staple, but I do know it is an awesome effect. The last card we'll look at is Gummy Things Just Got Real. I can't even believe it's just a picture of a real reptile sitting in nature. I can't even. Alright, maybe that's some kind of in-joke to the show or something, but it looks ridiculous. Putting that aside, Gummy's effect is pretty amazing. When you're in a problem face-off, you can take your opponent's character with the highest power, including their main character if that happens to be the case, and it's no longer involved in the face-off. It gets rid of some power on your opponent's side of the field, and it's guaranteed to be the most power that it can possibly get rid of. I think that's really cool. My one big problem with this effect is I don't think it stacks. Like, I could be wrong on that. I'll go and I'll get an official ruling on that later. But I'm pretty sure if you choose your opponent's character with the highest power, you can still take that as a target over and over again, so the effect doesn't actually happen multiple times with different characters because that character's still the one with the highest power, but I'll check in on that later. Either way, it's a really good card, especially for critter decks, because it's an effect that can never truly be dead. If your opponent has at least one character on the board, then this is a useful effect, and that's just the way it is. The final set of cards we'll look at are a new set of cards called the colorless cards. Some of them have color requirements, but while they're in play, they're not considered to have any colors at all. This first one is probably the most interesting. It's a 1 cost for 3 power. It's probably going to be a staple in every single competitive deck because obviously it's 1 cost for 3 power. Everybody's going to want it. It does have the chaos effect. When this card is flipped, you lose the game, which is obviously pretty hefty. But chaos only takes place when you're playing in the chaos format. So in regular games, this card will be amazing. One thing about some of the colorless cards is they're the main 6, but they've got the opposite color and they have some kind of other effect. Applejack's is if an opponent would score this card's problems bonus points, you score them instead. This is all around a good card. I still feel like maybe they're bashing on Rarity Truly Outrageous a little bit because this makes Rarity Truly Outrageous just completely dead. If you are also rocking a Rarity Truly Outrageous build and you play this card, you are automatically going to win against your opponent because if they do the whole score the bonus points again thing, you score them instead of them and their entire strategy is dead. But again, that's not to say that that's the only use for this card. This card has many other applications. You just drop it on your opponent's 3 bonus, and all of a sudden, if they do happen to score it, then you get the bonus points instead, so it's not even a problem you have to watch anymore. You can focus on getting the other problem. Fluttershy's effect is a little bit less useful. At the start of the score phase, you can choose an opposing friend, and it gets -2 power until the end of the turn. This has a couple of uses, I guess. Like, if you know you're going to go into a face-off anyway, this gets rid of -2 powers, so you don't have to deal with it. And if we don't have an official ruling on this yet, but if this happens to take place during your opponent's turn too, you can stop them from completing problems. I'll get an official ruling on that later, I promise, but in the meantime, we're just going to assume it's only during your turn. It gets rid of -2 power during face-offs, like I said before, and it can also stop face-offs if you're not ready to go into face-offs by making it so your opponent isn't completing a problem anymore. Just something to think about. Rarity is definitely one of the better ones. At the end of each opponent's turn, that player discards a card. Your opponent's hand size will not go up with this card, because every turn they draw 1 card, and every turn they discard 1 card. I just think this is an amazing effect, and the fact that it's not even unique is also amazing, because it means this can stack. It's just such a good card for orange decks to have, man. Orange is just getting everything. Twilight is pretty interesting. She gets +1 power for each color among friends and discard piles, and that includes all discard piles, not just yours. If you build something like my Friendship is Ridiculous deck, and you have something like this gets +6 power, okay? You're paying 3 for 8 power. That's even better than that secret rare Discord card, because you're getting 8 power and you don't have the same downsides. Granted, yeah, I admit setup is a little bit ridiculous for something like that, but if you do happen to build a deck around this card, you can pay 3 for 8 power, and that's just too good. This card almost didn't even make the list, King Sombra. These 3 for 4 power, which is okay, and at the end of your turn, you can retire one of your other friends to give this a +1 counter, so it can just continuously add up more and more and more and become really powerful and really hard for your opponent to deal with. But you have to sacrifice so much for it, I don't really know. Like, it might be really good in pink decks because you can get rid of, like, Pinkie Pies that aren't doing anything else useful, like Responsibility Pies and the Party Pony we were looking at earlier. Those might be kind of useful for this because you can just sacrifice them off and start getting a really powerful card. And lastly, we get on to another Queen Chrysalis card. As this card enters play, choose a non-unique friend. This card has the printed abilities of that friend's. So many possibilities. 3 cost for 3 power, and it gets whatever effects you want it to have on your opponent's side of the board. It can be a rarity truly outrageous, it can get stubborn from your opponent's orange friends, it can get swift, it can get studious, it can get Holly Dash's movement ability. Oh my gosh, there's just so much that this card can do. It can even get pumped abilities, okay? Pumped abilities. Okay, I'm pretty pumped about how good this card is, if you know what I'm saying. In all seriousness though, Queen Chrysalis is going to be an amazing card. I don't really see it being in too many decks. I think it's going to be a one of in at least half of the competitive decks out there, because I think a lot of decks are going to be able to make space for it because it just steals your opponent's abilities. But I don't know. I think it's a really good card. I think it's worth looking at. I definitely think it's worth its ultra rare spot, and I hope it sees some play. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to look at as far as friends go. We're hitting a little over 30 minutes now, so I think that's a good place to call it. If you have any cards that I didn't look at that you want to talk about, then please leave them in the comments section below, along with any thoughts on the video. Please leave me a like if you like this video, those things really do help me out, and subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudou news. Stay tuned for part 3.